They called me a gold digger, a nobody who got lucky. For 3 years I smiled and stayed quiet while my husband's family treated me like dirt. But tonight, at their precious charity gala, I'm about to reveal who I really am. And trust me, no one saw this coming. If you've ever been underestimated or treated like you don't belong, this story will hit you right in the heart. Stay with me until the end, because the reveal will shock you just as much as it shocked them. Let's dive in. My name is Luna, and for the past 3 years I've been married to Nathan Cross. Yes, that Nathan Cross, the billionaire whose family name graces buildings across the city. But here's the thing nobody talks about when you marry into money. They don't just judge your bank account, they dissect every single thing about you under a microscope until they find reasons to make you feel small. I grew up in a town so tiny, it didn't even have a traffic light. My parents ran the local hardware store, and our idea of luxury was getting pizza delivered on Friday nights. After college, I became a librarian because I genuinely love books and helping people find the stories that change their lives. It's simple work, honest work, and it makes me happy. But to the Cross family, my background might as well be written in invisible ink. They see right through me like I don't exist. When Nathan and I first met at a coffee shop near the library, he was just this charming guy who forgot his wallet and promised to pay me back for his latte. He didn't mention the private jets or the family empire. We fell in love over late-night conversations about books and dreams, not stock portfolios and social standings. But the moment I stepped into his world, I became the outsider who somehow tricked their golden boy into marriage. Every family dinner feels like a performance where I'm the only one who doesn't know the script. While they discuss their yacht trips to Monaco and charity galas that cost more than most people's annual salaries, I sit quietly, wearing my simple dresses from department stores, listening to conversations about a lifestyle I never asked to join. They look at me like I'm a stray cat Nathan brought home, tolerated but never truly welcomed. Nathan's mother, Isabella, has perfected the art of the polite insult. She never raises her voice or loses her composure, but her words cut deeper than any screaming match ever could. Last month at their anniversary dinner, she introduced me to her friends as Nathan's wife, Luna. She works at the local library, isn't that sweet? The way she said sweet made it sound like I collected bottle caps as a hobby. Then there's Victoria, Nathan's sister-in-law, who treats me like her personal entertainment. At every gathering, she makes it her mission to point out how different I am. "Oh, Luna, you simply must tell us about your little book club," she'll say with that fake smile. Or, "How adorable that you still shop at regular stores, so refreshingly authentic." Her husband just nods along, and the others laugh like she's the wittiest person alive. The worst part isn't the obvious cruelty, it's the subtle exclusions. They plan family vacations without mentioning them until Nathan asks why we weren't invited. They host dinner parties and forget to include us. When they do remember, I'm seated at the far end of the table, next to whoever they consider the least important guest. During their conversations about business deals and social connections, they literally talk around me like I'm furniture. I've learned to smile through it all, to nod politely when they make their little jokes, to say thank you when Isabella gives me backhanded compliments about my quaint lifestyle. They mistake my silence for stupidity, my grace for weakness. What they don't realize is that I'm not quiet because I have nothing to say. I'm quiet because I'm watching, learning, and remembering every single slight. Nathan sees it happening but never quite knows how to respond. He'll squeeze my hand under the table or change the subject, but he's never directly confronted his family about their treatment of me. I understand why. These people raised him, shaped him, and challenging them means risking everything he's ever known. But sometimes, when I catch him looking at me apologetically across the dinner table, I wonder if he truly understands what his silence costs us both. Every year, the Cross Foundation hosts their annual charity gala, a glittering event where the city's elite gather to write checks and feel good about themselves. It's the social event of the season, and this year's invitation arrived with the usual family drama attached. I overheard Isabella on the phone with Victoria, discussing whether I should even be allowed to attend. "She'll embarrass us in front of important people," Isabella said, her voice carrying through the marble hallway of their estate. You know how she dresses, how she talks about those little library programs like they matter to anyone who counts. The Sterlings will be there, the Montgomerys, all the foundation board members. We can't have her looking like she wandered in from some small-town book fair. Victoria's laugh was sharp and cruel. Maybe we could suggest she has a headache that night, or better yet, tell her the dress code is black tie optional and hope she interprets that as please stay home. They continued their conversation, debating my presence like I was a problem to be solved rather than a member of their family. When Nathan finally brought up the gala at dinner, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The foundation gala is next Saturday, he said carefully, glancing between his mother and me. Luna, you'll need something formal to wear. Isabella's fork paused halfway to her mouth, and Victoria's smile became razor thin. Of course she'll attend, Nathan continued, but his voice lacked conviction, like he was asking permission rather than making a statement. Naturally, Isabella replied, her tone suggesting anything but enthusiasm. Though perhaps we should arrange for Luna to have some guidance with her attire. We want everyone to feel comfortable. The implication was clear. My comfort wasn't the concern, their embarrassment was. Victoria nodded eagerly, already planning what I'm sure would be a humiliating shopping intervention designed to dress me up like their acceptable version of a billionaire's wife. I sat there listening to them discuss me like I wasn't in the room, feeling Nathan's guilty glances and his family's barely concealed dread. Finally, I spoke up with the same quiet voice I always used around them. I'll be honored to attend, I said simply. Thank you for including me. What they heard was gratitude and submission. What I felt was something entirely different, a calm certainty that this gala would be unlike any event they'd ever hosted. They just didn't know it yet. The morning of the gala, I spent hours getting ready in a way that would have surprised Nathan's family if they could see me. But they couldn't, and that was exactly the point. I'd learned long ago that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people underestimate you completely. I chose a midnight blue dress that was elegant but not flashy, expensive but not obviously so. My jewelry was simple, pieces that looked understated but were actually vintage heirlooms. I did my own hair and makeup, keeping everything natural and refined. When I looked in the mirror, I saw exactly what I intended. A woman who belonged in any room but didn't need to announce it. Nathan picked me up looking relieved. You look beautiful, he said, and I could hear the surprise in his voice, not because I looked good, but because I looked appropriate by his family's impossible standards. The drive to the hotel was quiet, both of us knowing this night would be different somehow. We arrived at the grand ballroom where crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables of perfectly arranged flowers and gleaming silverware. The city's elite were already mingling, their designer gowns and tailored suits creating a sea of wealth and influence. I watched Nathan's shoulders relax as we walked in. His relief was palpable when heads didn't turn to stare at his inappropriately dressed wife. Isabella spotted us immediately, her eyes scanning me from head to toe like a security checkpoint. I saw the moment she decided I was acceptable enough not to cause immediate embarrassment. Luna, dear, she said with manufactured warmth, how lovely you look. Not too much, not too little, just right. It was meant to be a compliment, but it felt more like approval that I'd finally learned my place. The evening began exactly as I expected it would. Isabella made sure to introduce me to every important guest with the same carefully worded description. This is Nathan's wife, Luna. She works at our local library. Such meaningful work, really. The pause before meaningful said everything about what she actually thought. Victoria appeared at my elbow like she'd been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Luna, you simply must meet the Sterlings, she said, guiding me toward a group of older, wealthy couples. Richard Sterling owns half the commercial real estate downtown. His wife Patricia chairs 3 different charity boards. The introduction was designed to make me feel small, to highlight how little I belonged in their world of influence and power. How wonderful that you work with books, Patricia Sterling said with that particular smile wealthy women use when they're being charitable. "I imagine it's so peaceful, so simple. Nothing like the stress of running major foundations or managing significant investments." The other women nodded knowingly, their diamond bracelets catching the light as they sipped champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Richard Sterling joined the conversation with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no. "It must be quite an adjustment," he said, looking directly at me. "Going from small-town life to all of this? I imagine you feel grateful every day for Nathan's generosity in bringing you into our world." The word generosity hung in the air like he was describing charity work rather than marriage. I smiled the same quiet smile I'd perfected over 3 years of these interactions. "I am grateful," I said softly, letting them lean in to hear me better. "Though perhaps not for the reasons you might think." Something in my tone made Nathan glance over from his conversation across the room, but the others just nodded approvingly, thinking they'd finally heard me acknowledge my place in their hierarchy. The dinner portion of the evening went exactly as scripted. I was seated at table 12, far from the main action, next to the foundation's accountant and a local journalist who seemed as uncomfortable as I was supposed to feel. The speeches began with Isabella taking the stage to discuss the foundation's yearly achievements, followed by various board members sharing statistics about their charitable impact. When Richard Sterling took the microphone, I knew the real show was about to begin. He spoke eloquently about the importance of maintaining standards, of ensuring that charitable organizations remained in the hands of people who understood responsibility and tradition. "It's crucial," he said, his eyes scanning the room, "that we remember some people are naturally suited to lead, while others are meant to support from behind the scenes. There's honor in knowing your place and serving it well." The applause was enthusiastic, and I caught Isabella nodding approvingly. Victoria was practically glowing with satisfaction. When Sterling returned to his table near mine, he couldn't resist one final comment. "It's refreshing to see young people who understand these principles," he said directly to me. "So many today think they deserve more than they've earned, but you seem to appreciate the value of humility." Victoria materialized beside us as if summoned. "Luna is wonderfully grounded," she added with false warmth. "She never forgets where she came from or tries to be something she's not. It's actually quite admirable how she's embraced her supporting role in Nathan's life." The journalist next to me shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing the undercurrent of cruelty beneath the polite words. I set down my champagne glass and looked directly at Richard Sterling, then at Victoria, then slowly around the table at the faces watching our interaction with barely concealed amusement. "You're absolutely right about one thing," I said quietly, my voice carrying just far enough to reach the neighboring tables. "I should never forget where I came from. In fact, I think it's time everyone here learned exactly where that is." The conversations around us began to quiet as people sensed something shifting in the atmosphere. Nathan had stopped talking entirely and was watching me with an expression I'd never seen before, part concern, part curiosity, and something that might have been pride. Isabella's smile had frozen in place, and Victoria looked like she'd swallowed something unpleasant. "I want to thank you all," I continued, standing slowly and addressing not just our table but the growing circle of attention around us, "for giving me such a clear education over these past 3 years. You've shown me exactly who you are, how you treat people you think are beneath you, and what you truly value in life. It's been incredibly enlightening." Richard Sterling's face had shifted from smug satisfaction to confusion. "I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at, young lady," he said with the tone of someone used to shutting down conversations that made him uncomfortable. "Oh, I think you understand perfectly," I replied, my voice gaining strength with each word. "You've spent the entire evening explaining to me how grateful I should be, how I should know my place, how some people are meant to lead while others follow. You've made it abundantly clear that you see me as someone who married above her station and should spend her life thanking the Cross family for their charity." The ballroom was definitely quieter now, with more heads turning toward our table. Isabella had gone pale, and Nathan was slowly making his way over, though whether to support me or stop me, I couldn't tell. Victoria's hand was gripping her husband's arm like she was trying to anchor herself. What you don't seem to realize, I said, my smile becoming genuine for the first time all evening, is that you've been making assumptions based on incomplete information. You've judged me by my job, my clothes, my quiet demeanor, and my small-town background. But you never bothered to ask the most important question of all. I paused, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. You never asked who my family actually is. The silence in the ballroom was deafening now. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving, sensing that something monumental was happening. Nathan had reached our table, his face a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. Isabella looked like she was watching a car accident in slow motion, unable to look away but terrified of what she might see. "My maiden name," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the now silent room, "is Luna Montgomery." The reaction was immediate and electric. Gasps echoed through the ballroom, champagne glasses froze halfway to lips, and I watched the color drain from Richard Sterling's face completely. The Montgomery name was legendary in philanthropic circles, old money, older than the Cross fortune, and infinitely more powerful in the charity world. "That's impossible," Victoria whispered, but her voice carried in the silence. "The Montgomerys are... You can't be..." She was struggling to reconcile the quiet librarian she'd been mocking with one of the most influential families in the country. "My great-grandfather established the Montgomery Foundation in 1924, I continued, my voice steady and calm. "We've been quietly funding educational initiatives, libraries, and literacy programs for over a century. The foundation you're celebrating tonight, the Cross Foundation, receives significant funding from us every year, funding that I personally approved." I let that sink in for a moment, watching Isabella's face cycle through disbelief, horror, and calculation. Nathan was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. "Luna," he said quietly, "why didn't you ever tell me?" There was hurt in his voice, but also something that looked like awe. "Because I wanted to know if you could love Luna the librarian," I replied, looking directly at him, "not Luna the heiress." I'd watched too many relationships crumble under the weight of expectations and fortune. I needed to know that what we had was real. I turned back to the crowd, which was hanging on every word. I chose to work at the library because books and education matter to me, not because it was my only option. I chose to live simply because I wanted to find someone who valued me for who I am, not what I'm worth. Richard Sterling had found his voice again, though it sounded strained. "Even if what you're saying is true, that doesn't change the fact that..." "That what?" I interrupted, my patience finally exhausted. "That I should have announced my family connections the moment I walked into your world? That I should have demanded respect based on my bank account rather than earning it through my character?" I looked around the room at faces that had shifted from smugness to panic. "You're absolutely right that it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change how you've treated me, what you've revealed about yourselves, or the decisions I'm going to make because of it." I reached into my small evening purse and pulled out my phone, making a call that connected immediately. "Hello, James? Yes, it's Luna. I need you to draft a letter first thing Monday morning withdrawing the Montgomery Foundation's support from the Cross Foundation, effective immediately." The gasp that went through the room was audible. "We'll be redirecting those funds to establish a new foundation focused on supporting people from humble backgrounds who are pursuing education and meaningful work." Isabella had finally found her voice. "Luna, please, there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding at all," I said calmly, ending my call. "For 3 years, you've shown me exactly what you think of people you consider beneath you. Tonight, you've demonstrated it publicly. The Montgomery family has always believed that character matters more than pedigree, and you've shown me all I need to know about yours." The room was buzzing now with whispered conversations and shocked murmurs. I could see people frantically trying to process this reversal, calculating what it meant for their own relationships with both families. Nathan stepped closer to me, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw him truly stand up straight in front of his family. "Luna," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I owe you an apology. I should have defended you from day one. I should have made it clear that anyone who disrespected my wife was disrespecting me." He turned to face his mother and sister-in-law, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "What happened here tonight is unacceptable. Luna has shown nothing but grace and patience with this family, and you've repaid that with cruelty and snobbery." Isabella's mask had completely fallen away. "Nathan, you can't possibly side with her over your own family. We raised you. We built everything you have. And she chose me when she could have had anyone," Nathan replied firmly. "She loved me when she thought I was just another guy who forgot his wallet at a coffee shop. Everything she's done with honesty and integrity. Can any of you say the same?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Victoria made one last desperate attempt. "This is all very dramatic, but surely we can work this out like civilized people. Perhaps Luna was just making a point." "The point is made," I said quietly. "The question now is what everyone chooses to do with the information they've received tonight." I looked around the room one final time, meeting the eyes of people who'd spent the evening judging me. I hope some of you will use this as an opportunity to examine how you treat others, especially those you think can't fight back. I took Nathan's arm and began walking toward the exit, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes following our movement. At the doorway, I turned back to address the room one final time. "I want to leave you with something my grandmother taught me," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "She used to say that real power isn't about making people feel small, it's about lifting them up. Tonight, you showed me who you really are when you thought I couldn't do anything about it. I hope you'll remember this feeling the next time you're tempted to judge someone based on appearances." As we walked out into the cool night air, Nathan squeezed my hand. "I can't believe you kept this secret for 3 years, he said, shaking his head in amazement. "I can't believe it took your family 3 years to show me who they really were," I replied, though honestly, I knew from the first family dinner. I just wanted to be absolutely sure before I did anything about it. We walked to our car in comfortable silence, both of us processing what had just happened. Behind us, the gala continued, but I knew the conversations had completely changed. By tomorrow, the story would be all over the city's social circles. The Cross family's foundation would lose its major funding, their social standing would be questioned, and people would be reassessing every interaction they'd had with someone they considered beneath them. As Nathan drove us home, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd revealed my secret or gotten my revenge, but because I'd finally shown my husband and myself that I was strong enough to stand up for who I was. Sometimes the quietest person in the room really is the most powerful. They just choose when to let that power show. Luna showed them that real power isn't about flaunting wealth, it's about character and choosing when to reveal your true strength. If this story inspired you to never let anyone make you feel small, hit that like button. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message about not judging others, share this video with them. What would you have done in Luna's situation? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most powerful.